Hi everybody, my name is Dennis and welcome back to another album review. Today we're reviewing the latest record from Kevin Abstract entitled Arizona Baby. Now, I enjoy a lot of Kevin Abstract's work with the rest of his Brockhampton crew. I think they've put out essentially nothing but amazing albums. I really enjoyed their last record, Iridescence, and I love the Saturation trilogy they've put together. Now, I do enjoy some of Kevin Abstract's solo work, especially from his last album, but in a lot of ways it felt like kind of a mixed bag. Like there was just something missing from his music. And Arizona Baby, unfortunately, isn't much of a different story, where it's very well written, I must say, where he is very personal and very thoughtful and very introspective with his lyrics. I mean, we have songs like Corpus Christi, where he's reflecting on all of the hardships he's had to deal with growing up. You know, being bullied for a lot of the things about him that he unfortunately just couldn't control. He's talked about the names he was called, being called and I quote, a snake, a liar, a faggot, a phony. And it's just this really powerful moment of him reflecting on the difficulties that allowed him to be the person he is today and how he was able to grow from them. And it has a really nice, smooth, relaxing beat to it too that makes it a really enjoyable song overall. The song Georgia is another highlight. I thought this one was also really interesting at reflecting much of the positives of his past, which kind of is a contrasting feel to Corpus Christi, which comes right after this song, where I love the hook of it that goes on about how he's got Georgia on his mind, ain't nobody left behind. And it's just this really sweet, introspective moment of him reflecting on the good in his childhood. We see him acknowledging both the good and the bad. He sees all of these different elements that made him into the person he is today. And even though he may have not have appreciated or he may not have enjoyed all those moments at the time, he's still in some ways thankful for allowing him to be who he is right now, because even though he didn't like being called names, being bullied, being just absolutely brutalized by so many events in his life, without that he would be a drastically different person. And Georgia, again, we see him paying respect to a lot of the beautiful things, the great things that happened in his youth, especially growing up as a very young person, where he just is developing into his own, and it's a really beautiful track overall. I also love the song Baby Boy, which has an absolutely phenomenally elegant instrumental to it. I love the sounds that this song gives off. It's really unlike any of the other songs on here. It's just so beautiful, honestly, with the synths, the guitars, and I mean the guitar solo towards the end of the song is just phenomenal. Outstanding, really. I think this is probably my favorite track instrumentally on the album, just because of how, just how gorgeous the entire thing really is. The song Use Me was another highlight for me. I thought this was definitely the heaviest rap song on here. A lot of it sees Kevin Abstract singing and taking a more R&B style, but this one is definitely the most rap-esque, for lack of a better term. But I just think it has a really great banger beat. I love the sample used in it. I think it's really catchy. It's really fun. And really it's just... Oh, my power just went out. That's great. And my power's back on. Alright. So, I'm just going to leave that in. I'm not even going to edit it out. Again, it's just a really fun track through and through. I really love the song. It probably wasn't my favorite, but it was definitely one of the highlights on the album. However, outside of these tracks is where I start to take some more issues with the album. The intro tracks, Big Wheels and Joyride, although I think they're fine instrumentally, they do lack in a lot of ways on the substance front, where Joyride, I think, is trying to establish some of the same themes and ideas that something like Georgia or Corpus Christi did, but it just feels underwritten, and maybe I'm missing something. Maybe there's a symbol in there that I'm just not picking up on, but to me it felt almost a bit distracted, and like it didn't really know where it wanted to go, and the weak lyricism, especially on such a strong lyrical album, really does hurt that song quite a bit, in my opinion. Mississippi is kind of the opposite way around, where I thought instrumentally it was very weak, but I enjoyed it a lot lyrically. Again, dealing with themes of his life growing up and just reflecting on the person he is today and what made him that person. Where I thought it was very good lyrically. I thought it was very interesting, and there was clearly a lot of thought put into it, and it definitely paid off. But I find the instrumental in its stripped back nature to almost be boring at times, or it just leaves me so unimpressed, which is really disappointing because he has a lot to say, not just on this track, but on so many tracks on the album. But it just is left behind by boring, underproduced instrumentals, whether it be nothing but a slight synth lead or some guitars moments, and maybe even a light piano, but it's never fully developed or fully realized into a beautiful orchestral, not even orchestral, but like just a beautifully composed piece of music. And again, I think he has a great voice. He has some great vocal performances on these songs, but the instrumentals are just so lackluster. It's disappointing in a lot of ways. The song Peach, I also took a bit of issue with. I thought it sounded fine. I thought the production and the vocals were all fairly good. But the main issue I take with this song is just the structure behind it, where it very prevalently has a lot of features on it, where even though I think they were good, in a lot of ways they overshadow Kevin Abstract, which I think is really unfortunate. This is supposed to be a personal album for him. It's supposed to be something about him and his life, and I think it's fine to have featured vocals and someone to do the hook or something like that, but it just feels so impersonal to have so many other artists doing this work on music that's supposed to be just about you and your life, and to me that really distracts it. I think it would have been fine if Kevin Abstract maybe had a stronger flow on this song, or maybe had some more interesting vocal performances, but unfortunately he just doesn't. And it's really sad, because I think this could have been a great song, but it's just left in the shadows by what could have been. And I think that's a good summary for this whole album overall, is just a shadow of what could have been. American Problem also has its fair share of issues, where it awkwardly switches the tone midway through the song, and it becomes a really unfortunate thing, because neither side of it is really all that impressive, and it becomes a very stale listen, especially after multiple times going through it. Crumble being another forgettable track right after that. Not really a whole lot to say about that I haven't said already about other songs. And the outro track Boyer was probably the most disappointing song on this album. I thought the production was very creaky, very harsh, very almost unlistenable at times. And even though it is brief, to me it leaves a really bad taste in one's mouth, where it's just a really frustrating ending to a fairly disappointing album, if I'm being honest. And overall, I didn't think this album was that bad. There were definitely some songs on here that I really enjoyed, and even though I have issues with a lot of the songs, there are a lot of things that I like about them. Whether some of them have good instrumentals, most of them have really great vocal performances, and a lot of them have really strong lyrics, but unfortunately, more often than not, he's completely unable to pair all of these together in the same song. It seems like I'm just picking one or the other in every single song on here, which is really unfortunate. I think this could have been a really beautiful, personal, and phenomenal album, but it just ends up being a bit of a disappointment for what it could have been. So, I mean, with all that being said, I'm feeling a solid 6 on this. Check it out. I still think it's worth a listen, even though it isn't the most fulfilling piece of music, especially this year. But still, it was a solid listen that I think has a lot of interesting depth to it. So, I mean, with all that being said, I'd love to hear what you thought of the album. Tell me what... I messed up my own outro. I'd love to hear what you thought of the album. Be sure to tell me how wrong my opinion is as always, and I'll see you in the next review.